Hey, greetings everyone. It is GleeCon, and I'm back. Welcome to another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you see, make sure that you like and subscribe at the end. I appreciate everybody that's done that. You guys rock. On our last episode, we finished off Ashenvale with our Alliance Night Elf. Now, she does still have a quest left. She just killed a bunch of satyrs, and it took an hour to do that. But we're going to wrap up the Tower of Althalax, and then move her over to Hillsbrad on the next episode. So it'll be kind of a transition episode next time. We've also been reading the World of Warcraft Lore Official Magazine, and that's another reason to subscribe to this channel, because you get some nugs like that are completely unique. You might be able to find a couple channels out there that talk about this magazine, but you cannot find it out there in the world unless you want to turn into this channel or buy it yourself on eBay. Last time we read a few articles. Mostly it was celebrating the 5th anniversary of WoW and had a lot of memories from players along the way, but there was also a few random things talking about the revamping of Onyxia and stuff like that. So stay a while and listen as we continue. I think we might finish this chapter today, this magazine today, and be ready to go. There's 5 issues. We're going to do, I think we'll finish this one. So this article is called Ace in the Basin. I'm guessing it's about Arathi Basin. It says, one of the most popular battlegrounds is also one of the most misunderstood. Some expert Arathi Basin players will help you consider all of your options. That's Trollbane Hall, Defiler's Den. So it's found in the Arathi Highlands of the Eastern Kingdom. The objective is to capture the various nodes. I'm sure most of you guys have played this, and accumulate resources. I like this one. I like these classic, honestly, these classic battlegrounds. They're my favorite. It's a 15v15, and you have to accumulate 1,600 resources, open to any character level 20 or above. Deep in the heart of the Arathi Highlands lies Arathi Basin, the third battleground to be introduced into World of Warcraft, appearing back in September of 2005 as part of the Rise of the Blood God content update 1.7. So when they made like Zul Farak or Zulaman or whatever, this 15 versus 15 fight over strategic resources continues to be popular thanks to its fast shifting gameplay and dynamic environment. Plus, its compact layout and straightforward capture and hold goals make it a great place for PvP newbies to get the hang of the battleground basics. What's the best way to play it? Depending on which battle group you play in and whom you talk to, you'll often hear players giving contradictory strategic advice. For example, players we pulled from both the Horde and Alliance recommended to never go to the Blacksmith because on their battle group, the opposition always takes it. So Blacksmith being the center there. While other players on both sides told us they always rush and take it every time. The more we dug in, the more conflicting tactics we found. So what is the best strategy? Marshal Aelwyd and Lieutenant Commander Peace of Zul'jin US, both exalted with Arathi Basin's League of Arathor faction, have gone back to the basics. Along with a small army of other Arathi Basin veterans from other battle groups, they took the time to lay out their strategy for us, centered around a core objective, to look beyond battle group specific situations and player preconceptions, and look at the real fundamentals of this battleground. So it gives you the different brackets. Basically, they're from 20 to 29 and so on, all the way up to a single level 80 bracket as a Wrath of the Lich King. The Arathi Basin experience can vary depending on your battle group, so we're looking at tactics and tips that can work anywhere, according to Aelwyd of Zul'jin. So know your nodes. The Blacksmith. Thanks to its position right in the center of the basin, the Blacksmith is the most strategically valuable node. Team members of the Blacksmith can move to any node very quickly, either to defend it or to launch an attack, and have full visibility of virtually all enemy troops' movements, enabling them to see exactly what's going on at all times. Because it's such an important node, Aelwyd and Peace recommend that you rush the Blacksmith at the beginning of every match, but do so in significant numbers, at least 8 or so. If you rush it with fewer and are met with significantly greater numbers, don't feel too embarrassed to turn tail and run to another node, says Aelwyd. You might be able to launch a more effective counterattack with greater numbers. Okay, there's the gold mine. I think it'd be helpful for us to look at where these things are. Okay, so if you look, the gold mine is kind of right in the north. There's a lumber mill to the south. There's a farm, which is basically the one that's by the Horde. And then the Alliance gets this stables. Because the gold mine offers virtually zero visibility of the battlefield and is vulnerable to sneak attacks from slow-falling characters jumping off the cliff down to the capture point, many players feel it doesn't have much of a strategic value compared to the Blacksmith and lumber mill. Players defending it can't help out their teammates by calling out enemy movement, says Aylward, and since you can't see much of the action from the mine, it's not a particularly fun place to hang out and defend. Because of this, gold mine defenders often wander away looking for something more interesting to do, which makes it an ideal node for you to capture with a coordinated sneak attack from your home base. It's also a great place for a couple of stealthy rogues to creep into and quietly capture the node if they can coordinate their efforts. Versus the lumber mill, I like to capture that one a lot. The lumber mill is another node that's strategically valuable for several different reasons. First, it's easy to defend thanks to the fact that there are only 2 ways to get to it. Second, it offers excellent views across the battleground so you can see what the opposite faction is doing. And third, it's the only node from which players can launch what Peace calls a paratroop attack on another node. Players that have a slow fall mage or levitate priest can cast it on others so they can float down to the blacksmith within a few seconds to quickly engage in a surprise attack or help defend. And then finally, there's the farms and stables. Due to the close proximity of the graveyard, the nodes closest to each faction's home base are the easiest to defend and most difficult to attack. Peace and Ale would consider these the bread and butter nodes that each faction can expect to control for most of the game. However, if the opposition does control your home node and you're killed trying to attack the capture point, be careful. You'll res in your home base graveyard and will have to run past the enemy to get to a safe node. If the opposing faction is camping your graveyard, run past them as a ghost, head to a graveyard you control, and res there. Yeah, so it is all no good stuff if one of those is taken. Before the gates even open, preparation buff up. This might sound obvious, but take advantage of the free buff time before the fight. Buffs make everyone stronger, so make sure your teammates are buffed to the 9 so they can operate at maximum efficiency. I have a really simple buff macro, says Peace. All I have to do is press it a few times and everyone's buffed. Taking charge. If you feel you're up to the burden of leadership and nobody else has offered any tactical advice, suggest an attack strategy for your team. It's often a good idea to offer to protect the home node yourself, give everybody else fun combat jobs and add, and I'll take stables farm. Leading from the home node also gives you the chance to watch like a proper commander-in-chief should, rather than being tied up in a crazy fight over a node, adds Aylward. Oh, I kind of skipped that one. Suggest 2 groups, yours and another, to go and attack one node, probably the blacksmith since it's the most desirable node strategically, and send another group to the lumber mill or gold mine. Be prepared to call in reinforcements to your home node fairly quickly. As in most games, there will always be at least 1 or 2 of the opposite faction running through to the home node to try to capture it. However, don't bother to call in reinforcements if you see people getting killed at the nodes they're attacking. They will res at your home node and be able to help you defend. The balance can be tipped in your favor simply by working together as a small strike squad. The buddy system. If you're not playing with friends, the experts advise you to check out who's in your battle group. If you're a DPS class, look to see if there are any healers and follow them. They'll probably be attacked first. If you help them out, they will very likely help you, creating a good DPS healing combo. The balance can be tipped in your favor simply by working together as a small strike squad. So try to figure out whom you might be able to work with to create a tough to beat combo. It's kind of like prepping for arenas. All right, so here's some strategies, kind of like we did earlier in this magazine. Defensive position. This is for the Alliance. Many players will tell you that the best place to defend is right on the capture point. That is true, sort of. If an attack is underway, you definitely need to be on the capture point, killing the opposition and disrupting their attempts to claim the node. However, if there's no immediate threat, more experienced players will often position themselves slightly away from the capture point in a place where they can watch the capture point they're defending, but also where they can quickly run to help another node if it's attacked, or indeed launch a counterattack if the opportunity presents itself. It's this flexible positioning that can help keep a team extremely mobile, enabling them to get to a node almost as quickly as the opposition and making it very difficult for them to mount a successful node capture. So the Alliance, you would start at the stables. This is a great spot for Alliance defenders to hang out right there by the stables. It's by your graveyard, allowing them to defend both the blacksmith and the stables, or pester the gold mine as a distraction, right? The gold mine kind of like off to this side, deep over there. Here's a great place to hold up attacking horde. If they break through, you can follow them to the blacksmith or lumber mill and continue to fight there. And then the lumber mill is up here. They're saying basically hold right here, and then you can kind of help either side. Whereas on the horde, they say this is a great horde defensive position right there, kind of by the lumber mill, with easy access to help with the farm and blacksmith, and launch attacks at the lumber mill when the opportunity arises. There's your horde, there's your farm, lumber mill, blacksmith. Here's another top defensive spot for horde characters. Easy access to the gold mine and blacksmith means the Alliance will have a really tough time breaking through and recapping either of those nodes. Okay, so Let's look at the general tips. There's capture 3 and play D. You only need 3 nodes to win, reminds P, so take those and then lock down your defenses. Although it's tempting to try to take a 4th node, only do so if it's safe and it's clear your team is outplaying the other. If you mount an attack, look to see if there are enough defenders at the nodes you occupy to resist an attack, at least long enough for your teammates to come back to help. Otherwise, you might be putting your team in danger of overextending, leaving 1 or 2 of your nodes open to attack, allowing the enemy to swing the advantage in their favor. Fighting away from a node is bad and good. If you're fighting away from a node, 2 things are happening, which can either be good or bad depending on which side is in the lead. If the enemy controls more nodes than you, fighting on the road isn't as helpful as trying to capture a node. The only exception to that is if you're outnumbered on the road. That means they're not guarding their own nodes and perhaps your teammates can quickly grab one while it's lightly defended. Likewise, if you're in a winning position, tying up the team away from any node means they're not going to be able to capture it. Stay aware of what the other team players are doing. They might be intentionally distracting while their mates capture the node. Hit them where they aren't. Switching up your attack locations and moving fast is key to being successful in Arathi Basin, says Peace. Keep in mind that if your attempted cap on a node was unsuccessful, the next best node to attack is the one that will take the enemy longest to get to. So for example, if you attack Lumber Mill and that was strongly reinforced by the opposite faction, the next attack target should probably be Gold Mine. Since you'll either be rezzing at your home node or Blacksmith if you control it, you'll be able to get to the Gold Mine much, much faster than the people who are just defending Lumber Mill. A quick bit of thinking while you're rezzing, followed by a clear attack call, can help tip the balance in your favor. Protecting a capper. When someone is claiming a capture point, help them out by crowd controlling ranged characters that might interrupt their capture, or fearing melee characters out of the way. Even running around to the graveyard to fear freshly rezzed enemies might help by a fraction of a second that might be the difference between making a capture and not. In the excitement of battle, players often get distracted by the fighting around the flag and forget the reason why they're there is to capture the flag, says Elwood with a laugh. Don't be one of those players. While in the thick of battle, communication is important. This is one of the easiest things that you can do to further your chances of victory, but it's also one of the most sadly underutilized. As any experienced Battleground veteran knows, a lot of people are quick to criticize and tell you what you should be doing, but not many players provide useful information. But when they do, and it's presented in a straightforward way, more often than not, other players in the Battleground will respond. If you want to be a positive contributor, call out opposite faction movement, suggests Aylwin. That's something that's easy to type and tells everyone what's going on. Usually it's best to say how many, where they're attacking, and if possible, where they're coming from. Definitely take a quick look at the mini-map before calling incomings. There's no point in yelling about 2 incoming people to your node if you already have 4 of your teammates there. Yelling at players for not doing something you think they should be doing is generally not productive. A lot of the time people will stop and argue with you, and as soon as that happens, you're not fighting the enemy, you're fighting yourselves. And that gives the opposite faction the advantage. True. That's why I hate PvP. So many people, those basic communication things that also apply to life, so many people when they're behind a keyboard forget that crap. Pre-made strategy. If you're a team of 15 and can communicate verbally, you should all be able to move together effectively and be a very tough team to beat, suggests Aylwin. Back in the original game, I was part of a daily pre-made team that literally ran hundreds of Arathi Basin games when we were ranking up through the old school PvP system. We used to run 9 to Blacksmith and 5 to the Mill. In the unlikely event that Mill was swamped, Blacksmith people would go and reinforce the Mill, then immediately attack the opposition's home node. Otherwise, we'd send 7 to Goldmine from the Blacksmith, leaving a healer DPS combo defending Blacksmith, and then both the Mill and Goldmine teams would rush the enemy home node. We used to 5-cap a lot of the time with that strategy, or at the very least control 4 nodes and simply be able to pile pressure onto the home node. 1 by 1. When attacking a node, it's very important to go in together, says Peace. If you go in one at a time, the enemy will simply pick you off individually with ease. Sometimes it's hard to coordinate, but it's imperative that the team moves in groups and supports one another. Just a little patience waiting for everyone to catch up and move in together can really pay off. Yeah, that just makes sense. Also, while in the thick of battle, don't run around solo. Almost any class will have difficulty confronting 2 or more enemy players solo, so try not to wander off on your own. There are some exceptions to this situation. Peace advises you might want to take a calculated risk, such as capping an unattended node, watch for stealth and or hidden players, or if you think you can take on and beat a solo or pair of defenders, but most of the time the best rule of thumb is safety in numbers. There's a cool Tauren girl. Proximity. Staying aware of your proximity to your teammates can be the difference between life and death. As Peace points out, if you're a healer, don't rush in first. Sit back behind your fellow players so that the opposition will have to go through your front line to get to you. Use buildings and obstacles to hide yourself temporarily or gain a line of sight advantage. If you're a melee fighter on the attack, keep an eye on everyone else. If you run out of range of your healers, for example, you won't get any heals, so try to stay reasonably close to them. Also be aware that some healers need to be able to stand still to cast some of their bigger spells. Try not to get yourself isolated. Remember where people res. If you've just repelled an attacking force and want to counterattack, remember that the people you've just killed will be resing at their closest graveyard. Aelwood has a good example. If you've just repelled an attack at your home node and the enemy controls the blacksmith, that's where they'll be resing. So while that one person sitting on the flag at the blacksmith might look vulnerable, by the time you get there, everyone you killed will have resed and will be looking for revenge. A good strategy is to remember where they won't be resing and attack that node instead. It's very common to see a player cap a node and simply run off. Take responsibility and help defend. Assess the situation. Watch what's going on, says Peace. Often inexperienced PvP players tend to just focus on killing the nearest enemy player. More experienced players, however, will constantly assess the situation and leverage the strengths of their character to help turn the tide of battle in their favor. For example, if your healer is taking a pasting, use crowd control on the players who are hitting them to give him or her some breathing space to heal. If the opposition has healers, use crowd control silences or stuns on them to disrupt their efforts to keep their teammates alive. And don't cap and go. That's what the big text just said. It's very common to see a player capture node then simply run off in search of a new adventure and fun times. Aelwood suggests you don't be one of those people. Take responsibility and help defend. Might not be the most exciting thing to do, she says, but if you want to win, this is the best way to go about it. Okay, points of interest with the best of the basin. More advice from Arathi veterans. These are like some quick hits, I think. It's great to have a clear plan, but if your strategy isn't effective, always be prepared to change up your tactics. Assess the situation to see what's not working, adapt your plan accordingly, and communicate it very clearly so everyone knows what they need to do. Peace, Zuljin, US. Sometimes other players think I'm an idiot for harassing the 3 or 4 people guarding a flag on my own, but they don't think that while I'm keeping those players occupied killing me, the other 14 people on the team are essentially playing against 11 or 12. Sometimes that's enough to tip the balance of the game in our favor. That's true, Tornish Kiljinia, especially if you have somebody with a lot of survivability and bubbles like a paladin or something. Don't just stick to offense. Defend. It's not that bad, especially now that you get 50% more honor for defending a flag. Ewan getting Stonewall US. Yeah, I never have a problem defending. I bring spyglasses to every battleground. One of my companion players makes them. I often pass them around to the others in the battleground as well. What helps one helps all. Paroxysmsol, Moonguard US. I'm a stealth class character and find I can cap flags with my healer partner frequently simply by exploiting human nature. I get my partner to run close to a node and pause as if waiting for reinforcement while I hide out of view and wait. Almost always the people guarding the flag will chase after them for an easy kill, allowing me to cap the flag while they're distracted. To Larry. Zuljin. I use the moat around the blacksmith to hide myself from scouting enemies, but watch out for hunters and other ranged attackers. Yeah, I do that too. I used to do that a lot. Like I said, I don't play that much anymore on that. Fear, Moonguard US. Alliance Death Knights can use their Path of Frost ability to help create a faster route to the blacksmith. Bear to the right instead of using the bridge and run straight across the water. Just make sure to keep up with the Death Knight or you'll end up having to swim. Mocha, Shadow Song US. If your strategy isn't effective, always be prepared to change up tactics. That's from Peace. All right, cool. This is in the cards. I'm actually, it would probably be ridiculously expensive, but if I could somehow get my hand on a full set of the World of Warcraft card playing game, I would hands down do it. I just don't want to pay like $1,000 or whatever for it. How much adventure can you pack into a stack of paper? The World of Warcraft trading card game offers the drama and thrills of Azeroth in the palm of your hand. So again, this is sort of like an advertisement one, but this is for something I would actually really. I would have done that poster one that we did before too, but I just think there's cooler ways to do it now. It just looks cool. I mean, it's basically Hearthstone, is essentially what we have here, and Hearthstone's cool. Yeah, Hearthstone is cool too. I do like that game. I don't play. Yeah, I don't know. There's actually other. I like Hearthstone, but there was a game. Man, I'm trying to remember what it was. I want to say maybe it was based in the Elden Ring universe, but it had like 2 lanes. I used to play that way more. I have Hearthstone like on my phone, but I don't really play it that much. I play it from time to time, but it's just I'm stuck with the starter decks at this point because I think I like played on my old account a long time ago and I deleted it or something. So now I'm stuck with this. Whenever I try to get into it, it's like, okay, I go to play PvP and I get wiped because I'm using starter decks, or I just grind some pre-made decks. I don't know, or I do, because I don't pay money. I'm sure if I paid money, it'd be okay. But this is a cool thing. I guess, yeah, what's the point of buying this now with Hearthstone out there? You probably felt that familiar pang. I'd rather be playing World of Warcraft than fill in the blank. Maybe you can't always play the MMO when you want, but there's a more portable option, the World of Warcraft trading card game from Upper Deck. Remember Upper Deck? Now entering its fourth year, the TCG has enjoyed great success as both a casual pastime and a competitive battleground for strategy gamers. And maybe that's kept you at arm's length, but there's no need to be intimidated. In fact, you might be surprised that you already know most of what you need to know to play. Everything else we'll cover in this primer. There was an old Magic the Gathering card game that was like a single player adventure game, and I loved it. I love playing this kind of game against AI, and I used to be crazy into Magic the Gathering for pretty much all of middle school and high school. I mean, I would play tournaments at game shops, like hobby shops, whatever. I had for the first couple expansions from like I made it a goal to try to get everything. And one of them, I can't remember which expansion it was now. Not Forgotten Realms. It was probably the third, fourth, fifth expansion they made for the game. I literally collected the entire set. I just bought boosters and boosters until I got them all. I would spend all my money that I earned, anything I could do for chores, allowance. I was really into it. So it's not that I don't like that kind of PvP, but again, I like to collaborate in games rather than go against other people like this. I like that more often. I do like this sort of thing, but I just don't get as much joy from it because people can get butthurt, including me. So, as I become an old man, I just don't, that's not how I want to spend my time. I'd rather collaborate and play with others in a positive way. Trading card games have been popular since the mid-90s. Generally, they're one-on-one affairs where each player custom creates a deck of cards from a large pool of several hundred. While some powerful cards are rare and harder to find, it's not a matter of simply getting all the most powerful pieces of paper in your hand and then saying, I win. The luck of the draw and player skill are also big factors, so a flexible strategy is key. It also means that no two games are ever alike. Like other trading card games, the World of Warcraft TCG regularly introduces new sets of cards with different themes and occasionally even new gameplay mechanics. As you pick up booster packs from various World of Warcraft TCG sets, it's a little like earning experience points. You'll visit new areas, learn new attacks, meet new characters, and maybe run into them in battle. Each expansion pack focuses on a different part of Warcraft lore, and every set features rare loot cards with codes that can be redeemed for exclusive in-game items. Cards from different sets work together, so if you like what you see in expansions like Servants of the Betrayer or Through the Dark Portal, you can mix and match cards to hone your deck into an efficient war-stomping machine. At least in PvP, Battlegrounds on WoW, you're getting both. You're fighting another team, but you're also working together. It's just that the working together part, like they mentioned above, can be so toxic. Same thing, not a matter of simply getting all the cards and saying I win. How will you deal with death today? It all starts with some class. You can choose your hero from across all sets in the World of Warcraft TCG, including products like the Death Knight Deluxe Starter, which introduced the Death class to the TCG after its debut in Wrath of the Lich King. Death Knights will be available in booster packs starting in this fall's Scourge War. Some sets feature a mix of one of each class per faction, while others feature unique heroes with special rules such as the Demon Heroes in the Hunt for Illidan. You play as the hero you select and you build your deck, a minimum of 60 cards for tournament play around that hero, which is 60 cards is what they used to use for Magic too. If you picture yourself as a high warlord or grand marshal commanding troops, you can pump your deck full of allies. That's kind of like how the Paladin deck is in Hearthstone. Allies range from simple followers that attack at your command to legendary figures straight from Azeroth lore. If you're lucky enough to find him and hardy enough to command his respect, you can recruit High Overlord Sourfang and give him orders. If you found a Leroy Jenkins in your Heroes of Azeroth booster pack, you can let loose his battle cry and send him screaming across the field at some Onyxian whelps. Hunters and Warlocks can even summon pets for support. Eerie Voidwalkers and Ferocious Tigers give the two classes a big boost. If you only want a few support allies, or you're willing to brave the bloodstained fields alone, you must search for the finest pieces of gear available from the weaponsmiths and armorsmiths of Azeroth. A popular strategy among melee class heroes is to defend with armor, while either hacking a path through the army of allies with two-handed axes like Gorehowl, or cutting through opposing defenses with the potent power of dual wield. Yeah, this is very similar to Hearthstone. Rings, bags, trinkets, and even mounts can augment your hero. Caster classes have equipment as well, though their weapons generally aren't made for striking and often have special powers. Weapons like the Bringer of Death, for example, sweep everything out of play. If that makes Spell Slingers sound intriguing, you can build your deck with a focus on abilities such as Instant Interrupts and Giant Spell Blasts. Fire, Frost, Arcane, Holy, Shadow, or Nature, whichever color you want your hands to glow as you conjure up a ball of Burnination, it's covered. Taking too much damage? Have your healer fire up a greater heal right in the opponent's face, but don't let him kick or pummel it. The TCG shares a lot in common with the MMO, so you may find the mechanics of combat very comfortable right out of the gate. The wheres and whys. This is a Draenei versus Blood Elf. The TCG features resources, the currency of combat, which you will use to play cards out of your hand. Unlike many other TCGs, any card can be used as a resource. It just gets placed face down in front of you. That's something Hearthstone changed. This is where a good chunk of strategy comes in. What attacks or allies do you want to bring into battle, and which ones are you willing to sacrifice as resources? While resources are placed face down, quests are placed face up. If you meet the requirements of the quest card, you can complete these quests and reap the profits, so that's different. For instance, the Proving Grounds quest card lets you draw a card when you pay 2 resources. Completed quests turn face down, but locations always stay face up. Representing landmarks across Azeroth, Outland, and Northrend, locations entered the TCG starting with the Darkmoon Fair expansion and expanded in Drums of War. They're familiar places like the Undercity or Alterac Valley that give you benefits such as better armor or boost to your hero over the course of your battle. You may only have one location out at a time, but you use it over and over again for massive long-term gains. The only other key concept to understand about the TCG is the chain, as in chain of events. But if it helps to envision real iron shackles, we won't stop you. While there's a bit more to it than we can get into here, the chain basically works like this. When you play an attack on your opponent, they get a chance to respond or defend. Your attack goes on the chain first, and their response goes on top of it. And back and forth it goes until one player can no longer act. Then the damage is dealt. It might look imposing at first, but once you understand the chain, you'll see that it's meant to keep the chaos of battle simple, understandable, organized, and fair. Ready up. As you explore each new set, more options will open up, but once you pick up a starter deck or build a deck from cards found in booster packs, you're ready to start playing right then and there. Now you just need a friend or at least an opponent, and you can start trying out your strategies. What happens next is up to you. Okay, all decks on hand. If you're new to the trading card game, here's the good stuff you've missed. You've got your choice of starter kits, booster packs, and raid decks with which to begin. Any starter kit will give you the basic instructions and solid cards to build upon. The rest is a matter of customizing your deck by collecting the cards that match your playstyle. Raid decks can be integrated into your arsenal too. All cards work with all other cards for customization without compromise. Happy hunting. So Heroes of Azeroth started in 2006 with Leroy Jenkins and Magni Bronzebeard. Onyxia's Lair came out a couple months later with Onyxia and the Nemesis Skullcap. So almost 6 months after that, Through the Dark Portal dropped with Hootie and Queen Sylvanas Windrunner. Shortly after that, like 1 month later, Molten Core dropped with Ragnaros and Sulfuras. And a couple months after that, Fires of Outland dropped with Spectral Tiger loot card and Chen Stormstout. A couple months later, Feast of Wintervale with the Abominable Grinch and Metzen the Reindeer. It's a collector's set. March of the Legion happened a month after that with Alder and Scryer cards and the Bringer of Death. A month later, Magtheridon's Lair dropped, a raid deck with Magtheridon and the Aegis of the Vindicator. And then a few months later, Servants of the Betrayer dropped its Illidan with Trader Heroes and Lady Katrina Prester. Oh, there's actually more that continues. It says on one... So, yeah, they're going to break it on the next page. At War with the Scourge. World of Warcraft trading card game designer Jeff Liu talks about the latest expansion, Scourge War. Yeah, so this is like them doing a shameless plug, but it is their magazine. Why focus on the Scourge for this booster set? Northrend was introduced in the most recent World of Warcraft expansion, and the main baddies are the Scourge. Since we did a year focusing new card sets on the last MMORPG expansion's major enemies, it seems only natural to do one for this expansion also. What were your goals for Scourge War? One of our major focuses was keeping it simple so that new potential players would have an easier hopping on point to start with the game. Many of the mechanics and individual cards have to do with the graveyard because that seems to feel like a Scourge-related part of the TCG. Relating the set and the upcoming sets with the graveyard in various ways was definitely a goal this time around. Scourge War includes new Strand of the Ancients cards. How do they factor in? Like the Warsong Gulch minigame found in the Fields of Honor TCG set, it's just an alternative rules set for people looking for a change of pace. By making small tweaks in the rules, people change what cards are good or bad in their own areas. By doing this occasionally and officially ourselves, we give people a uniform set of changes that they can choose to agree to play by. The result is added value from the rest of your collection. The different format makes old cards that were never used into superstars in this rule set. While Death Knights were the focus of a starter deck earlier this year, they weren't quite as powerful as some of the other heroes in the TCG. It looks like Scourge War will make them more competitive. Do they come with any special powers that traditional allies do not? They'll have their own identity and text boxes and powers that will eventually become familiar for players. Obviously, something new can't be familiar right away, but I'm confident that as we come out with more of them, people will be able to look at certain powers and be able to say, yep, that power feels Death Knight-y. The Death Knight set came out just this past summer, and Scourge War is only the second TCG expansion to address Wrath of the Lich King content. Why does the TCG trail behind World of Warcraft content? Well, Blizzard has to build the expansion first. Some of the last things they do is finalize an expansion are cementing what powers do. Play patterns of new spells, powers, and classes, names of their items, quests, and whatnot, and models of how things look. Now, one of the first things we do here at Upper Deck is order art for the set. We do this first because of how long it takes for us to write the art descriptions, take screenshots of everything from the game, send them to the appropriate artists, have them make sketches, allow Blizzard to approve the ones we like, have the artist finish the drawing, go through a round of changes, then more approvals, and so on. You get the idea. None of this can start until after the World of Warcraft expansion basically hits the shelves and is finalized, since the information we need to start is the same thing they change right up to the last minute. By the time people are leveling in the game, we're starting a near year-long process to make a set related to that TCG expansion. The result? Our content lags behind by a significant portion of time. Do you have the latitude to create new characters, or are all the allies and heroes pulled from World of Warcraft? Most of the allies and heroes are not directly from World of Warcraft, but we do stick to the naming conventions and guidelines. For example, Sprocket Crasher might be an okay name for a gnome, but not an undead, unless it was an undead gnome. How much input do you get from the community, and how much of it can you implement? We read our forums, organized play results, and whatever else becomes available to us. This gives us at least some idea of what our tournament players are thinking. Our more casual players we can only guess at by asking them whenever we come in contact with them, like on the March of the Legion tour, and thinking about our own casual gaming pasts and presents. Based on these things, we can mold sets to be closer to what we believe people will enjoy more. We definitely keep in mind that those who speak the loudest are most often are only in the majority some of the time, and therefore we have to try to take every clue with a grain of salt. It's not a perfect science, but I'd like to believe that we're improving the process with every attempt. Last year's world champion Jim Fleckenstein also got to try his hand at helping to design a card, which will be making its debut in Scourge War. For individual card designs, it's much harder for us to take any suggestions from the public because they don't have the months of extra knowledge about what the other sets that we do, and their answers would be to no fault of their own, out of context and outdated. They wouldn't have the information about the themes, mechanics, and play patterns we're trying to promote in the future, and it would make it quite difficult to fit in perfectly with what we're working on at any given time. Okay, continuing this. Hunt for Illidan came out July 08 with Demon Heroes and Maiev Shadow Song. Like a couple months after that, the Dark Moon Fair set with Sage and a Dark Moon Fair collection. Black Temple came out same month. Illidan is a raid deck with Illidan Stormrage and the Warglives of Azzinoth. Drums of War came out a couple months after that with Alamo and Karen Bloodhoof. Then it was about 4 months later, 4 or 5 months, to where Blood of Gladiators, which had Brawl, Bearmantle, and Logosh. A couple months after that, the Arena Grand Melee with Shredder and the Brutal Gladiators Greatsword. Next 1 month after that, Death Knight with Darkness Calling and Death Grip. Then also Fields of Honor with Drekthar, El Pollo Grande loot card. And then a few months later, Scourge War, which is what we talked about with King Varian Rin and Kel'Thuzad Master Hero. And finally, Nax came out a month after that, which is right about the time this dropped, with Mr. Bigglesworth. Okay. The top performing player of 2008, Hero of the Year Brad Watson and his elite minions, traveled the globe playing the Warcraft TCG, beat him, and win a prize. Oh. I guess it's kind of neat to be called the top player of anything. The competition circuit. As you start developing your deck and learning what you like best, start searching out single cards and trading with players. Check your local hobby shop to meet folks in your area, or head to wowtcg.com and use the player locator. If you want to keep it casual, that's probably defunct now too. Find achievements matches in your local store. Just for playing there, you'll unlock TCG achievements and maybe win prizes for your feats of strength. Also be on the lookout for the Dark Moon Fair, a traveling event that brings the World of Warcraft TCG to you. Meet players, learn new tactics, take home some freebies, and if you're in the chase for the Spectral Tiger loot card, the Dark Moon Fair is your best chance. Everybody in the top 8 rides the mount home. If you're ready for a more intense contest, you'll find a very active competitive community and several events on the site's organized play page and the tournament locator. The most common type of event you'll find is Battlegrounds. Like the online game, think of your local hobby or gaming store as the portal to Arathi Basin. Once in, you'll be dueling other competitors for real loot, promotional cards, playmats, dice, and other exclusive stuff, but the stakes get higher if you compete on a regional realm level. Upper Deck splits pieces of Europe, Oceania, and North America and reshapes the landscape into Ashenvale, Durotar, and other familiar zones, and their organized play offers realm qualifiers that feed into the realm championships. Across the globe, players smash and bash each other twice a year to win the title of Realm Champion and collect thousands of dollars in prizes. Your local realm also supports the game with regional qualifiers that feed into national championships across the globe and the North American Continental Championship for those in Canada and the United States. This is the big time, and as a result, this level of play has significant rewards. Travel vouchers, computer equipment, game systems, and slots to the World Championship. Every fall, hundreds of World of Warcraft TCG players descend upon an unprepared city for outright war. This past October, competitors clashed in Austin, Texas for the fame of being world champion and the fortune of $50,000. If you've always wanted to hold up a giant check with your name on it, this might be your best shot. Okay. TCGs are famous for their flexibility. That's a strength, but it can also be a weakness. How do you keep everything balanced? This guy's like a tailor. Trial and error is a bulk of what we do. Just like players test to find the best decks after we release a set, that's part of our process when a freshly designed set hits development. The main difference is when they find something that seems way better than everything else, they take it to a tournament. When we find something that's way better than everything else, we ask a series of questions. Is this what we think people will enjoy playing? Will this suppress other things we find fun and make them unplayable? Is this outside of the range of what we're comfortable with this play pattern existing in power level wise? Dozens of questions come up for every new play pattern or concept, and given time and experiencing it, we try to guess how our players will react to it and whether we want that response. We keep testing everything repeatedly, even if we think we already know how a group of cards will play, and then we do it again and again. Into the dungeons. The core mechanics of the TCG might make it sound like the game is one big PvP encounter, but that's not the case. It wouldn't be World of Warcraft without raid dungeons and cooperative gaming. This alternate style of play is a little too big to pack into a single 19-card booster, so you'll find it in special standalone decks instead. That's kind of what they do in Hearthstone too. In raid play, one human player essentially plays the dungeon and all the bosses that dwell within it. 3 or more other players work together to defeat the dungeon's encounters. These decks also feature randomly inserted loot cards for cosmetic upgrades to your characters in World of Warcraft. So far, there are TCG editions of Onyxia's Lair, Molten Core, Magtheridon's Lair, the Black Temple, and coming in December, Naxxramas. So yes, that means you'll be facing all the enemies you know and love to hate. If this sounds intimidating, don't worry. These trading card raids are customizable, just as World of Warcraft allows you to customize dungeon difficulty, but the Black Temple and Molten Core raid decks allow you to tweak the number of bosses you'll face. Scale back the difficulty to get your bearings, then dial up the doom. Man, they're really diving into this trading card game. There's the world champion also right there, Eris. For love of the game, to 2008 world champion Jim Fleckenstein, the TCG is about more than just piles of glittering prizes. The ace talks in his own words. When you face Twilight Vanquisher Nolan, you face the fury of Fleckenstein. Oh, so he kind of helped design that card. In December of 2004, a few Warcraft 3 friends convinced me that it was time to move on to World of Warcraft. I'd never played an MMO before, and when I logged into Destramath and made a character, I was woefully unprepared for what awaited me. However, I was a quick study, and in short order, I had not only caught up to my friends, but also had changed characters and caught up again. It's a testament to how intuitive the game is that even as a player completely unaccustomed to the genre, I was able to take to it so quickly. Years would go by and I would grow to love endgame raiding content. Over the span of countless content updates, I raided with Colonial Space Marines of Destramath, Eclipse of Anetheron, Insomnia of Tichondrius, and Reason of Kael'thas. In that time, I played 5 different classes in a raid setting, seen everything, and I mean everything, dead, from Molten Core through the re-release of Naxxramas. Through the TCG, I've gotten to relive some of my favorite MMO memories again in card form. I've completed Counterattack. I've been to Onyxia's Lair. I've conquered Warsong Gulch. And I've seen the splendor of Adal face to wind chimes. From stabbing Clothies with Perdition's Blade to teaming up with my team, guildmates, to storm Illidan's Black Temple, the trading card game has introduced me to countless new people and let me travel all over the world to play. Not bad for a hobby. Upper Deck has gone out of its way to try to offer outstanding prizes for tournament players, from gaming systems to trips to play in TCG events to unique products and gadgets, not to mention cold hard cash. The payoff for performing well is outstanding. Last year, the prize included the chance to immortalize your character as a card in the TCG. I'm honored that when my character Twilight Vanquisher Nolan, that's him to the right, arrives in Scourge War, I'll be ready to melt faces everywhere. I've met some great folks and have played with some of the craftiest card players in any game, and despite the obvious competitive aspect, the community is such that after we're done with the long day at the gaming table, we'll all get up and go to a restaurant as friends, just enjoying the camaraderie that comes from knowing that everyone else is in it to have fun too. It's something I don't think any other card game can duplicate. That's a tall statement. And it's an experience I wouldn't trade for much else. Win or lose, there's a lot of entertainment to be had. For the Horde. So he's Horde only. Okay. I know someone that has a Horde tattoo on their arm. I'm like, dude, you are hardcore. Community Artist Spotlight. Okay, so this, actually, I was worried. I'm like, I don't even know if we're going to finish this episode. But now, if we're going to get to some art for a while, it might be cool. This is a cool Varian Rin. Your turn. So they want to see your art. That's a cool picture. I don't know if a person drew that or not. It does. It's from Sam, my king. Yeah, this is cool fan art. David Raposa, Mr. Delicious, a Tauren Shaman. Jeremy Sun, the gift for Lantana. Imagine getting the name Sun, that's cool. Aaron Nakahara, Cobalt Plasma. Phaedron and Varamathras. I don't even know who Phaedron is. Maybe that's his character. That's a cool picture, though. They did good art. Simon Locke, Scared Mountain King. That's a cool one, too. That's a good picture. Just says Wayne Reynolds. It doesn't look like it has a name, but it's like a Draenei Paladin, maybe warrior. We're on to a new article. It doesn't say, but this is a new article all about tanking. So we did one about healing, and now we're about tanking. And we're getting close. I'm going to try to just bust this episode out. This issue out, I mean. Major threat. You want them to hit you as hard as they can, making that happen however takes some planning. Unlike the rump-gazing DPS melee classes, tanks stare down their foes. Could this be a wipe? An ill-timed pickup of Onyxia has scattered my raid party to the four corners of her lair, and just as everyone is running back, a tail sweep throws healers and damage dealers into her egg chambers. Countless whelps stream forth, the healers are out of range, and the whelp battlers go down in a flurry of swipes, along with me, the warrior main tank. Quick off the mark, the off-tank picks up Onyxia and tries to grab the whelps, but more DPSers fall as everyone frantically tries to rein in the chaos. Surely we're doomed. And then from my fixed viewpoint, I suddenly spot a pair of healers desperately trying to make it to the new MT as he battles the remaining whelps and Onyxia herself. Surely this isn't possible. 16 minutes of edge of the seat action later, and the venerable dragon hits the ground. That's the raw power of tanking, backed up, of course, by some near-perfect healing. But this situation also highlights a weakness. The tank has to be the one that's getting hit. Holding aggro on multiple mobs isn't easy, especially since DPSers often react to being hit by hitting back, which produces their untimely demise. It's human nature. Accept it and don't get upset when your teammates litter the ground. I would say they've vastly changed tanking. It's so easy to maintain threat now. Now it's all about positioning. I would say that's really what tanking is about, is positioning. They make a lot more of the game about that now. As players take on more challenging encounters and heroic modes, building threat has become an essential skill once again. This is especially true if you've got a bevy of damage dealers desperately trying to top the meters. But if you focus on building the best threat on the planet, those same damage dealers will love you. Research and build your rotation around the highest threat skills. They're not necessarily guaranteed to be the most painful to the boss. Taunts and interrupts tend to create a lot of threat. Doesn't matter if they're trying to cast a spell or not. It's all about annoying them. Gear can tweak your ability to build threat too. Gemming and enchanting are obvious options, but changing your gear can also be valid. It takes time, but you're not the only one having to do so. Our DPS brethren have been knocking themselves out trying to get precisely enough hit to make sure that those big spells and swings land. Each new upgrade can lead to a complete reworking of their existing gear. While we're on the subject of hit, if you want to ensure that your blows don't miss, then at level 80, theory crafters in the community recommend you aim to get your hit up to 8%, a hit rating of 263. This will ensure that your special moves and normal blows find their target. There's another stat you need to be aware of, and that's expertise. That's like one of the most important ones now. This dictates whether your foes can dodge or parry your attacks. DPSers are well aware of this stat, but for them, theory crafters say there's no point in going higher than 6.5%, or 26 points of expertise. Unlike the rump-gazing DPS melee classes, tanks have to stare down their foes face-to-face, which means bosses can also parry rump-gazers. Parrying a tank's attack is all kinds of bad as it speeds up the mob's next attack, which means more horrible damage incoming and a drop in your threat production. However, the Theory Crafters tell us you need a massive 56 expertise to knock the 14% parry off the table. This is why it's wise to go for the same 6% as your fellow DPSers first. Each percent equates to a 2% chance to land as it affects dodge and parry, and only start chipping away at the parry chance once your hit is at 8%. Okay. If you're capped for both hit and expertise, another option is to simply do more damage. This might focus on a particular aspect of your tanking style. If you're a warrior, you might go for more block value so that your shield slams hit harder, or it could be simply gemming for stamina or to hit a socket bonus that fits your build. As long as you can do so while maintaining a reasonable avoidance and stamina stats, you should find yourself producing great threat. Also, be prepared to adapt to your situation. If you're facing multiple mobs that need to be kept under control, use your Rage Energy Rune Dump on swiping or area of effect abilities rather than damaging your main target. For instance, if you're trying to tank a group of mobs as a warrior tank, you'd want to dump Access Rage into Cleave rather than Heroic Strike. Those little changes can make a difference. Finally, you could get the DPS to back off, and in some fights this will be necessary, but on the whole, this is akin to asking you to not get hit so much. It's the reason you're in the raid, it's the same for them. Even so, it could be the DPS aren't managing their threat-reducing cooldowns properly. Soul Shatter, Invisibility, Feign Death, and so on. Watch the threat meters. If you're a warrior tank or you've got one in the group, get them to drop Vigilance on the biggest threat producer and see if that helps. You're not tied to leaving Vigilance on one member for the whole fight either. Swap it around if someone floats up the threat table. This can be essential in fights where there are buffs for the DPS to gobble up, such as when facing General Vizax and Hodir. So that's probably a mod you need if you want to really be a good raid person. If all else fails, just make sure you keep the healers alive. They'll be only too willing to return the favor. That's why Muvine, the Tauren warrior, has been in protection spec since the mid-30s and has been hit by just about every boss out there. Most of the time, he lives to tell the tale. Most of the time. Oh, here we have another guy. This looks like DPS. It's a cool picture where he's got every weapon known to man. Idle hands. So yeah, so it looks like we're giving a little bit of a strategy for each to wrap this episode up, this issue up. You can wield 3 daggers, or you can, can you? Clever time and resource management can make you deadlier still, by Josh Augustine. Sometimes you need to use weapon swapping to stay alive, even at the expense of your damage. Playing DPS is like fixing a sink. You can just pick up the first tool you see and rush blindly at the sink, flailing your arms in its general direction, but you're probably going to fail epically. It pays to be methodical. If you're looking at a bolt, you need a wrench. If you're looking at a clogged pipe, it's time to get the snake. It's the same for damage-dealing denizens of Azeroth, only instead of sinks to fix, we have people to kill and heals to interrupt. Whether you're tasked with taking down mobs, felling gigantic bosses, or blasting fellow players in the arena, you need options, and swapping out weapons might be just what you need to turn the tide of battle in your favor. While having to manage weapons on top of abilities, buffs, cooldowns, and boss timers can be a bit daunting at first, if you can afford to set aside a portion of your gray matter and your action bar for weapon swapping, you'll be able to be a lot more flexible in combat, always choosing the perfect tool for the proper situation. Let's look at one rogue-centric example. An assassination rogue's finishing move in Venom bypasses enemy armor and provides a temporary boost to poisons afterwards, but it requires deadly poison to already be on the victim. To take advantage of this, you might choose to put deadly poison on a fast offhand, but unlike instant poison or wound poison, deadly poison does not deal direct damage when it hits. It only needs to refresh its dot every 12 seconds. This can result in some wasted poison procs as you don't gain very much benefit from it refreshing the dot prematurely. Thankfully, with the Master Poisoner talent, Envenom won't consume deadly poison stacks on the target when used, but you still need to get the deadly poison on the target first. If rogues want to maximize their damage dealing efficiency, and let's be honest, aside from pickpocketing oafish ogres, efficient damage dealing is what most rogues live for. We need a better solution. Thank God you don't have to do this anymore in retail because of deadly poison and stuff like that proccing instant damage too. Enter the third weapon. For 6 seconds after a 5 combo point in Venom, the rogue has a 15% chance to apply deadly poison and a 75% chance to instant poison its chance to do extra damage. We can time the deadly poison application so that the potential wasted proc time occurs exactly when we have a buff to increase our instant poison damage. This is the perfect time to swap in another preferably slow offhand dagger with instant poison and seize a little extra damage. Every bit you can inflict counts. Keep an eye on the duration of your deadly poison dot and swap back to your fast dagger with deadly poison after the envenom buff wears off and before the deadly poison dot runs out. If you get unlucky on refreshing it, don't be afraid to use Shiv to keep the 5-stack dot active. That seems so much work. How much damage are you really increasing for that? That just seems like a lot of work. I mean, but sure, if you want to be the best. That's why there's pros out there. That's just. I mean, I could see it happening, but that's a lot. Of course, this is just one very specific example of how weapon swapping can fit into your game plan. Sometimes increasing damage output isn't your highest priority, and you need to use weapon swapping to simply stay alive. As the saying goes, a dead character's DPS is 0. This is especially true in PvP for classes that can equip shields, such as warriors, paladins, and shaman. When taking heavy damage, help your healers out by swapping in a shield to buy some time for them to heal you. This is even more important for warriors who have several skills that require a shield to be equipped, such as Spell Reflection to turn the tables on someone trying to crowd control you, Shield Slam to dispel a magic buff on your target, and Shield Wall to drastically reduce damage taken for a short while. Don't forget to swap back to that big hander before you use those heavy hitting abilities like Whirlwind, Overpower, and Mortal Strike. Warriors already do the stance dance, switching between Battle Fury and Protection stances during combat to maximize their role's potential. With just a little more effort spent weapon swapping, they can reach even higher levels of effectiveness in combat, and maybe even earn a thank you from their healers. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing that kind of stuff, you're good. So, for those of you out there watching it, if you're stance dancing, sure, but if you are in the heat of combat, switching between your shield and not, you are next level, and my hat's off to you. I'd be impressed if I was playing with you. Putting weapon swapping into practice is actually pretty easy, no matter which class you play. The Equipment Manager, which you enable from the interface menu, select features, allows you to create sets of equipment and bind them to your action bar so you can change out as many or as few pieces of gear you want with one click. That's true. Create a few of these equipment sets and put them on your action bar so you can swap out weapons on the fly in combat. In battle, every second counts. And with this method, maximizing your weapon damage is easier than fixing a sink. Josh Augustine is a severe altaholic who has played almost every class at endgame but enjoys his 3 high-level rogues the most. He enjoys stabbing things in the face. I like them. I like rogues too. All right, now I'm guessing this is going to be some kind of healing. Gridlocked for healing. All right, so do you get hypnotized by health bars? Reducing information overload will help you survive the fight and enjoy it. We aren't really in the game world anymore. We're in the metagame where players are health bars that stand in formations. That's true. When you are healing, nothing's more true than that as a healer. Absolutely, 100%. As a healer, I ought to have the best view in the house. The melee classes are all so close to the fight that all they see is the boss's big toe. Ranged DPS have their view obscured by a constant stream of fire, ice, and lightning from their fingertips or the smoke and muzzle flash from their dwarven machine gun of tree felling. Meanwhile, we healers get to stand 40 yards back from the mayhem with a grandstand view of the entire magnificent encounter. And what do we do instead? We squint furiously at 10 or 25 colored boxes and ignore the game world entirely. I have a suspicion that a lot of healers secretly like playing this way. Healing is all about splitting your attention in lots of directions at once and making complicated triage evaluations to decide who gets the next heal and which spell you'll cast. I actually like healing. It's probably, I don't do it that much, but it's probably one of my favorite things to do. There's already too much information to process just from the user interface layer of the screen. In the heat of the moment, the world behind that is often an annoying distraction. Flying on autopilot. The trouble is fixating on the interface breaks immersion. We aren't really in the game world anymore. We're in the metagame where players are just health bars that always stand in precise rectangular formations, and the boss isn't a world-threatening villain anymore. He's just a progress bar, counting down until the fight is done. This is like driving through the Spanish countryside by just watching the sat-nav GPS instead of the view outside the window. It's a good point. Now, obviously, you have to watch those health bars, otherwise people are going to die, but the unit frames don't need to take up your whole attention. There's always the temptation if you're using an add-on like Grid to include every possible piece of information about a player encoded as a variety of numbers, icons, colored dots, borders, and text. And while it's possible to argue a case for any piece of information being useful in some conceivable situation, it all comes at a price. The more info you display through your add-on, the more of your attention will be diverted there and away from the environment. On busy fights, it sometimes feels as if the only time you get to watch the fight is when you die early, which if you get too blinkered can easily happen. Let's take debuffs as an example. By default, Grid will show all debuffs on a player as icons in the middle of their grid box. Even if the debuff isn't one you can dispel, it might be useful to see what players will be taking extra damage in the near future so you can slap a HOT on them. But that icon is a magnet for your attention. Back when we were doing the Moros fight in Karazhan, I used to get mesmerized by the Garrote debuff spreading across the raid. And more than once didn't notice that my shackle had broken and Dorothea Millstipe was loose and busy burning off all my mana. And after all, the Garrote debuff is just a dot. I couldn't personally do anything to get rid of it, and the dropping health bars were already a perfectly good way of alerting me to its presence. Stress is dangerous. Every extra instrument on your game dashboard requires a tiny piece of your concentration to monitor, and it all adds up. It makes the fight more stressful and increases your tunnel vision. I find that the fight becomes much more fun for me if I stop trying to micromanage every possible status effect. I have the center icon turned off in Grid, and I use the border color to notify me of just the debuffs I can cure. And this goes double for progression raids. The more unfamiliar and difficult to fight is, the less distraction I want on the screen. The first time I fought Grobulus and Naxxramas, both Grid and Bigwigs, an add-on that I used to help with raid bosses, were alerting me every time someone was hit by the mutating injection. This would make me mentally jump, take my eyes off the poison clouds on the floor, and rush to start casting big heals. But players can see their own debuffs perfectly well, and since the mutating injection causes AoE damage, they would all be running away from the main raid group. By taking off the Grid alert, I could just listen for the Bigwig's chime, and then heal whichever guy was running frantically away. Suddenly I was watching the fight, and I felt like I was healing the player, not just the health bar. It's easy to feel as if being the best healer means having total situational awareness of everyone in my group, but healing is all about the big picture. Everyone else only needs to worry about one health bar, the bosses. We healers have 5, 10, or 25 to juggle. There's simply no time to get bogged down by detail. Luis Villazon has played healers since the open beta. He tried a rogue once but found healing with bandages was too slow. Alright, so we are getting mighty close. We have Where Go the Brides. Look at all these brides following this guy. Keeping Your Guild Entertained One Tournament at a Time by Tim Edwards. No pushing. So let's kind of see what we have. We have this article and then a tiny thing at the end. So this is it. We're on our last 2-page little article, or 2 single 1-page articles. I knew we'd created something very, very special when it started raining cows in wedding dresses. Hello, my name's Tim, editor of the UK edition of PC Gamer magazine and a guild leader. A year ago, one of my fellow editors and I decided to create a guild in World of Warcraft, specifically for our readers. The two of us had bounced from small guild to small guild from day one, never getting the chance to see raids. Wrath of the Lich King had just come out, and we wanted a shot at killing Arthas. At the time, enlisting the help of our readers seemed like the easiest solution. Ha! Easy, you'd think. Today, our guild is massive and still growing. With 500 active members, we're by far the biggest guild in our realm. We're hitting World of Warcraft's hardest raids, and we've developed into an awesome PvP force. We've raided every city, killed every faction leader. But that isn't the best bit of the guild. We pride ourselves on being something more. We pride ourselves on having the most fun. We were building a guild from scratch, with new players who may have had alts on different realms and with different guilds. The road to 80 is long. And if we expect players to stick with us, we need to keep them coming back. That's why on Sunday afternoons we schedule regular events, not raids, not battlegrounds, not instances or dungeons. These events are what binds our guild together and what makes us special. And rather than feeling like you have to make your evening pilgrimage to the summoning stone, I'd like to recommend you try something similar. We have irregular cow races. The idea you start a level 1 Tauren and have to make it to the gates of Undercity. First one there wins a pot of gold out of the guild bank. 40 level 1 characters charging through the barrens, being picked off by Planestriders is a genuinely arresting sight. Your guild should try it. We host a variant where low-level characters are paired with high-level characters and then set on a course across Azeroth. They only win when the low-level character makes it across the finish line. They can use any tricks they want aside from flight points and mounts to reach their goal. We once tried to ban all cheaty effects like Aspect of the Pack or speed potions, but our guild is too clever and they always had a new way of boosting their speed run. Now that's all part of the fun. We have free-for-all arena tournaments. We hog the Gurubashi arena, launching 40 or 50 players into anything goes, no-holds-barred combat. There are a few rules, however. The first is simple. On my command, everyone leaps into the pit. The last one standing wins. Or we line them up, sending a new combatant in on 15-second intervals, Royal Rumble style. Sometimes we pit the best players against teams of newbies, asking them to take on 4 or 5 equal-level players until they're eventually overwhelmed. We have dual tournaments, not just meet up outside Orgrimmar and we'll fight tournaments. Oh no, we take our combat seriously, with announcers dressed in tuxedos, an audience enclosure, and engineer flares and fireworks being fired off at the kill. Oh, we make them fight on the walkways to the Great Lift because it's funny when they fall off. Speaking of the Great Lift, we came up with another amazing game to play. You lose your armor and put on a wedding dress. At the bottom of the lift, place flares of different colors. The guild lines up with each player receiving a slow fall spell from a mage officer before leaping off. If the jumpers hit a target, they win a prize. If they miss, they get laughed at. To hit the target, they'll have to cancel their slow fall spell. Hence, Azeroth starts raining cows. There's a whole world out there. Take advantage of it. That's actually super cool. And more cool than even, I would say equally as cool as being a part of all that would be seeing it happen. I was part of a guild that tried to do some things, and it was the guild I was part of for the longest time. And I liked that. It was fun, the drama. Unfortunately, the guild leader was annoying, super annoying. And the drama drove off. Like, as I stayed for years in this guild, and by the time it was like maybe my 3rd cycle of having lost everyone I know in the guild except for the guild leader, who I didn't like. And I was an officer in this guild, and like I said, I did it for years. But you just lose all of your friends to other guilds so many times, and so much stupid drama, and eventually I quit, and I'm actually guildless with my main, and I've been guildless for like a year now. I just been roaming the wilds. All right, last article. Ring of Protection. Securing your guild bank means securing your guild's accounts. God, people that hack guild banks, the just worst trash of the world. It's equivalent to the people that are just out there hacking accounts. I mean, I know they probably see themselves as just, I don't know what, taking advantage of people that deserve to be parted from their money. That's how you have to sleep at night. So you've got to justify it by saying, like, if you're dumb enough to get scammed or dumb enough to get hacked, you deserve it. So that's the only way you could sleep at night. Or you've got to have like such a dire situation where the actual real rewards, I don't know, if you're getting money, if you're selling WoW tokens or whatever, it's got to be providing a real effect where you just can turn a blind eye because this is how you're putting food on your table or whatever. And I would still say, dude, pick something with honor. Just don't be, you're not freaking Robin Hood out there. You're a douche. There are plenty of them out there. There's a lot of ways to be a douche, but that's just not in my view. I was just watching, I think I mentioned this, I was rewatching BoJack Horseman the other day, which I love that. I wanted to get my wife to watch it, and I watched the last episode. We just finished the whole show, and there's a part where in the very last scene where the two main characters are talking, and the guy is apologizing because he kind of had like a hit rock bottom and called his friend. And she's like, you know, I am so mad at you for making me feel like I'm responsible for saving you. And he, is like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then she's like, but maybe that's, and it shouldn't be my responsibility. But then she says, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's everyone's responsibility to save everyone. And I think that's more my approach to the world. Every night I say prayer, a mantra, whatever. It's a prayer for me, but you can call it whatever you want if you're not a religious person. But every single day, one of the last things that I say is that I pray for the opportunity to be a servant the next day. So that is how I think you should approach the world. It's just my own personal philosophy. And not everyone should do it. I don't hold anything against anyone, but I do hold it against people that are just out there taking advantage, scamming others. Like, just be better. All right. They say that guild leaders wear many hats. Cliche, perhaps, but good leaders play more than just healer, tank, or damage dealer. They also play cheerleader, recruiter, event organizer, and even counselor. While guild leaders can take pride when a new boss is downed or a battleground is won, they also have a long list of behind-the-scenes responsibilities that often go unappreciated. By the way, I'm thinking about starting a guild. BT dubs. So if I do this guild, if I get it up, I'm going to do guild charter, and I'll get a bunch of my alts and my wife's account and all these other people in there. But if I start this guild up, I'll start putting the links in there, and I will do a subscriber guild for sure. I just had this idea right now. It just spawned into my head. But they've inspired me. I think that would be a cool thing to do. And we could do some of our things recorded and put on this channel. I think it would be a cool idea. As the caretaker of the guild and the key to the guild bank, a good guild leader has to think not only about his or her own account security, but also the security of those who have access to precious guild resources. There are a number of preventative measures guild leaders can take to protect themselves and others within their guild, and people who can help should you or one of your friends wind up in an unfortunate situation. Advocate authenticators. The Blizzard Mobile Authenticator and Battle.net Mobile Authenticator are great security tools. The Battle.net Mobile Authenticator is an app for mobile devices that provides a unique one-time password to use in addition to your regular password. I use that now. It's a free download for the iPhone and iPod Touch and is available for 99 cents on a bunch of other phones. You can get it for free everywhere now. For those who want something more tangible, the physical Blizzard Authenticator serves the same purpose. It can be attached to your keychain or kept right alongside your computer. If you play on multiple World of Warcraft accounts within the same Battle.net account, one authenticator can provide protection for them all. Better still, any player who opts for the authenticator protection will soon become the proud caretaker of a cute and cauterizing Corehound pup companion. I think that you still get that. This devilish little guard dog's being added in an upcoming patch. Look for a special Molten Mutt themed Blizzard Authenticator in the Blizzard store account at the same time. I think you also gain extra bag slots in your backpack too. Well worth it. Meanwhile, you and your guild can find full info on the Blizzard Authenticator at us.blizzard.com/supporter.eu, blah, blah, blah. Support, type account security or authenticator into the search bar to find all the resources you need. Discourage account sharing. It's easy to fall into the habit of sharing characters with guildmates for the sake of the guild, but part of the reason account sharing is against the game's terms of use is that it opens players up to account compromises and can make the account recovery process more complicated. I've never shared my account. The closest I've done is where I've been at a friend's house and I make a character on their account, on their PC, on their desktop, and play right there. Encourage safe computing. While there will always be folks looking to take advantage of others on the internet, it's easier than you might think to protect yourself from these nefarious types. Even little things such as using unique passwords for different online accounts and keeping your operating system and antivirus software up to date can go a long way. There's nothing else in my life that I do. I have a pretty complicated Warcraft account, and I don't use anything else in my life with that password. That's one of the few things, like work email, all this other crap. I share passwords all the time. But not with WoW. And like I've told you before on previous episodes, it's because getting hacked on this game killed my love of WoW for years. Losing my account killed my love for years. If you find out a guild's account has been compromised, the affected player should contact customer service support immediately. They're there to help. As a guild leader, you constantly have raids to prepare for, events to organize, disputes to settle, and preparations to make. But if you follow the advice above, account security won't need to be one of the things that keep you up at night. Even though it's printed in black ink, Nethera's words usually appear in blue in the official World of Warcraft community forums. Oh, that's cool. They don't talk about securing the guild bank, though, because that will get you screwed. Humor is subjective. Epic fail. See, this is where I got sent this. There was water damage on the back cover, so this is on the actual back cover. Something and abilities you'll probably never see. Items and abilities. The Wand of Picnics. 25.8 DPS, deviled egg damage. Equipping it adds mayonnaise. Gross. And adds 15 to your cholesterol. Harsh words with the soothing kiss emote. Wounds players in a chat radius, causing 1250 hurt feelings damage over 1 hour. Generates a high amount of threat. That's actually cool. Staff infection, disgusting. Cost of blood, so that would be, I'm guessing, a Death Knight ability. Reduces damage from staff and polearm weapons by 50% for 2 minutes. Reduces damage from them. Maybe it's like if you're using it. Throwing feces of the monkey, a thrown weapon, 110 DPS, 16 agility, increases smell power by 20. And I like how it's got the aspect of the monkey. And Nerf bat. I actually think that there's a foam sword. Why not be a Nerf bat? Very soft club, 5.7 DPS, reduces the target's strongest ability in the next content update. I mean, that's funny. That's funny. That's really funny. And this is the back cover as we get in there. It talks about the next issue. Here we have, I can't remember that dragon's name, but the famous one from World of Warcraft, from Wrath of the Lich King. I don't remember his name. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. Icewing or something. I don't know. Icing Death. That's something else. That's from D&D, I think. Here we have more Scourge fighting Sylvanas. This is the poster that you can get inside. We did it. We finished our first episode. Holy goodness. All right. So we have 4 more episodes to go. I still am not quite. I'm almost done uploading. I'll probably finish uploading the 4th issue tomorrow. I keep saying episode issue. And then I'll have 1 to go. But obviously I'm fine because we still have 2 more that I fully uploaded before I even get to that. So we'll be all good. But we have another episode in the pipe, 5x5. Thanks everyone so much for watching, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Lore of Warcraft. Peace out.